The Coronado Mob. The Coronado Mob, before they were busted, ran a $100 million marijuana smuggling operation from 1972 to 81. And you have never seen a more unlikely-looking bunch of mobsters. They came right off the beaches of Southern California and looked as though they'd come right out of a Hollywood casting office. They were all high school pals 10, 15 years ago. There was Lance Weber, who built the boats. Lee Stremple, who supervised equipment. Don Kidd was the chief mechanic. Al Sweeney was the forger. Robert Lahodney made their most profitable connection. All these and many more of their friends and high school pals were in the Coronado Mob. And the backdrop for this improbable gang of smugglers also looks as though it had come straight out of a Hollywood film. Coronado, California, a placid, sun-drenched community near San Diego, known best for its Victorian hotel, the Del Coronado, its naval bases, and its beaches. And the kingpin, the boss of the mob, he too didn't look the part. Luis Villar used to be a high school Spanish teacher and basketball coach. How did all these men get into the marijuana business? Years ago, Lance Weber and a few of his friends were running a small-time pot smuggling operation across the Mexican border. It's a few miles south of Coronado, never dreaming that one day it would turn into a $100 million operation.
This is America. Right there, that's Tijuana, Mexico. That's the bull ring by the sea. That is Mexico. That fence is the international border. A swimmer, would walk down to the beach, get in Mexico, and swim.
Carrying on his back, swimming?
Swimming, it floats in a bag, and kick all the way up there.
With what kind of a load?
Very small, 20 pounds, 25 pounds.
Which would be worth how much?
$4,000, $5,000. Except for the fear of sharks, it was good, clean fun.
But these smuggling operations were hampered because the young men couldn't speak proper Spanish. And so in 1972, Weber went in search of a translator and approached that high school Spanish teacher, Luis Villar.
He was painting a house, and I walked up and said, "Get off that ladder." Just like that. And he looked at me like, "What, are you crazy?" And walked down, and I says, "Let's go to Mexico." And he went, "No, I have a house to paint." I went, "No, we have to go to Mexico, come on." Now, we're friends. I've known him for a decade. And he says, "What for?" I says, "Well, you know how to speak Spanish?"
You knew he did.
And he's a high school Spanish teacher, and he went, "See," you know, like a comedian. Well, let's go to Mexico. And he says, "Well, I don't have time." I says, "Well, we'll make it worth your time."
Weber gave Villar, the Spanish teacher, $50. And thus was born a massive marijuana smuggling operation to be known as the Coronado Company. No one suspected that Lou Villar would display an organizational genius that would result in the Coronado Company's expansion to both coasts and 3 continents.
After he came in, doors opened. It became Technicolor. And we took off, and we became a success, an overnight success. We'd come up here at about 70 miles an hour and be here in less than 10 minutes. Pull in off those rocks, either north side or the south side, depending on who's there.
Of the Hotel Del Coronado.
Hotel Del Coronado. Within a year, we had 40-foot cabin cruisers and carrying tonnage instead of just poundage.
Within 3 years of Villar's joining the Coronado Company, they were regularly smuggling 20-ton loads like this one and making millions. Lou Villar, the oldest in the group, they called him Pops, was the catalyst.
It's more than just translating simple Spanish. It's generating belief that we can do things and pay off. He could cause people to trust.
Villar, the negotiator, the deal maker, took charge. He recruited many of his former students, like Lee Stremple, a young man he'd coached on the high school basketball team, who had just gotten out of jail when we talked to him.
I'm unusually tall, so my first responsibility was to handle the bow of the boat while we were waiting for the lull to come. And so I was called the bow man and held the top of the front of the boat up so water wouldn't rush over the top.
You're 6'6".
That's correct.
He, Villar, was the chairman of the board, so to speak?
Yes. Lou had the ability to organize and to motivate people to get the most out of them.
He was a manipulator.
Excellent manipulator, yes.
As the Coronado Company grew, they developed specialists.
What my area of responsibilities were was handling the logistics of our considerable amount of equipment and crew.
And I know how to make a boat go fast over rough water and carry weight.
Well, I started out as a regular guy packing bags. Gopher. Yeah. Moved on up from there, chief engineer. Where
Don Kidd, after 2 convictions, is on probation and awaiting the result of his appeal. And when Villar and the Coronado Company wanted to change their identities to fool the cops, they recruited Al Sweeney, class of '72, who would later become a government witness.
My photographic skills manifested themselves in producing California driver's licenses.
How many false licenses did you make?
A little over 200 in the space of 4 or 5 years. Well, many of them, many different names for one person, of course.
When Robert Lahodney, also a veteran of Villar's Spanish class, became a partner, profits took an astronomical leap. Lahodney, now serving time in a federal prison, had traveled in Southeast Asia since high school, and he provided a lucrative link to the high-quality marijuana of Thailand.